Everyone, welcome back to Becoming a Therapist. I have with me today Coley Woodward. Coley, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Morgan. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited to hear from you. I've been looking on your website and looking at your brand, Cyberspace. What a unique name. I can't wait to dive in. So, let's start at the beginning. I want to hear your therapist origin story. What got you into the mental health field and just how you got to where you're at today?
So my story of origin started back in like 2007, I think. I was in between my sophomore junior year of college back then, so I dated myself a little bit. But I worked for a nonprofit sponsored by Mariah Carey, actually, called the Fresh Air Fund Camp Mariah program, and I met this disadvantaged youth from New York City, and he was kind of an outcast of the group. A lot of the kids didn't like him because he was mean, he bullied everybody.
Mm,
And I kind of didn't like the kid. I thought he was a bad kid. So I had judged him. And he had mentioned to me when I was helping him with his resume that he had won an engineering contest and he was really good at mathematics. And I was kind of blown away. I was like, a lot of people have ostracized this poor kid, and he's extremely talented. He's this young black kid from the inner city, and a lot of people probably have rejected him and put him off. And after that, I had a lot of compassion for him, and it kind of opened my vision. Like, I need to help these kids that are at risk, that are uber talented, that can really optimize their potential if they're nurtured and cared for correctly.
mm, yeah, so a lot of it is sounds like external factors. I mean, there's environmental factors, there's socioeconomic factors. So, what makes your practice and this type of work really unique?
The psychedelic work, I mean, within itself, it's kind of disruptive, I would say, the least. I mean, when you think about the origin of psychedelics, this has been in our culture for years, like from ancient Greece to Africa, and like even the Aztecs and everything, and the Mayans. So
Mm,
it's such a long history of it, and I mean, you look at modern day society of how it's been kind of demonized and stigmatized, of how it's portrayed, and you look at the war on drugs and everything. Yet these medicines have such widespread potential, such inner healing potential that is kind of minimized and kind of covered up.
mm. Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, this is a pretty untraditional way to do it. So, okay, I want to hear more about the science behind it and what kind of has drawn you to psychedelics specifically.
Really, their transformative power. I mean,
Okay.
there's extensive research of how effective they are. For instance, MDMA, which sadly wasn't legalized last June, it has shown to be effective for treating PTSD in as little as 2 to 3 sessions, which is pretty remarkable for people who have been suffering
Mm,
for years or decades. And a lot of these psychedelic substances are really powerful in healing treatment resistant mental illness. What that means is people who haven't been receptive to traditional modes of treatment, such as psychiatric medications, if they've been on 2 or more trials of medications, that's treatment resistant, or people who've been in and out of therapy for years is very telling as well. So, what I really value about psychedelics is that they provide a new vantage point of looking at your life, for one, and it kind of also mitigates the intensity and the overwhelming feeling it can you can have really dealing with past memories. So they suppress parts of your brain like the amygdala where you're not so active. So I kind of equate going through psychedelics as like going to the dentist. Have you been to the dentist before?
well, yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. If you've been to the dentist before, would you get your tooth pulled? Would you get a filling or a root canal without Novocaine, which is anesthetic?
I mean, I guess if I had the choice, yeah, drugs all the way.
Oh, exactly. So in the same manner, that's why I look at psychedelic treatment, or in particular ketamine treatment, which is the one available psychedelic substance like medicine that we have right now, is that with therapy work and doing trauma work is very deeply painful and deeply rooted, and people can get easily agitated and activated by digging too deep in there. So why would one want to go up in there without easing into that journey a little bit first and kind of alleviating that pain? The same way that I wouldn't want to go in there and to the dental office and get my tooth pulled without Novocaine. I don't want to go in there and aggravate something because I would never go back to the dentist personally if I had to get a root canal without an anesthetic. So who would want to do trauma work in the same way is the way I kind of equate it.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of your population, okay, they're having these intrusive thoughts, they're having the PTSD symptoms, and it's scary to ask somebody to like come, especially with EMDR, like people know a little bit about that and like other sorts of trauma work. They know that they're going to have to think about it and readdress it. And so, okay, it makes sense that there's something there to, well, numb the pain.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even just numbing the pain more so, it creates something in the brain called neuroplasticity. What that means in simple
Ooh, okay.
terms is the brain becomes more malleable to more ways of thinking and patterns of behavior. So you can think of your brain like clay or mush that you could just remold it and reshape it and rethink it. Or you could think it about as far as going skiing or snowboarding on a slope, and then when the ketamine comes in, it kind of puts a fresh layer of snow on the mound. So now you can carve a new pathway to your journey.
Ooh, okay. So, thinking about it in a different way, but also it sounds like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but with the any sort of drug assisted anything, sounds like it's kind of removing that horrible emotion or maybe helping that horrible emotion kind of, I don't know, be separated from the thoughts and memories of the events. Is that a fair way to start describing it?
Yeah, that is pretty accurate. I mean, definitely for ketamine,
Okay.
it helps you detach away from that. Like ketamine itself is a dissociative. I mean, you can really disconnect from those old patterns of thinking, those negative beliefs. It really helps quiet down that inner critic that kind of might be echoing in your mind that you're just at peace. The best way I can describe ketamine is like the most peaceful peace. And I mean, that's what the cyberspace really is. That's what cyberspace means, is that inner healing, that inner space which is usually non-accessible through ordinary states of consciousness. That's what the cyberspace means, really. It's not just a psychedelic space or the psychological space. It's that inner space where we're dissolving the matrix and really getting into our psyche.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like a lot. It sounds like something you would have to be really careful from like an ethical standpoint. So, like whether, legal or ethical or any of that, like how do you navigate doing this in a way that is appropriate and is not gonna like get your license taken away as a clinician?
So I only work with legal substances, and ketamine is
Okay.
an FDA approved anesthetic. It's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. What that means
Oh,
is if there were a zombie apocalypse, ketamine would be one of the first things the hospitals would be grabbing. So unfortunately, I can't work with psilocybin, even though I have a license in New Jersey. My plan is to launch. I actually have a practice in New Jersey, by the way, and I'm going to be
wow.
opening soon in New York. But I'm licensed in California, Georgia, New York, and whatever one I missed. So psilocybin I can't touch, MDMA I can't touch, but ketamine I can work with.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So, there's been a lot more progress in this area than I initially realized.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really the wave. I mean, psilocybin is legal in three states as I know. It's Colorado, Oregon, and New Mexico. So
Okay. Wow. Okay. So this is a very new and innovative field that you're getting involved in. Like, wow, this is not something that they teach us about in grad school at all.
yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it earlier about how did I get into this field. I mean, I didn't know how transformative it was until one of my colleagues had mentioned that he had done MDMA training. I was like, how is that even possible? Ecstasy's not even legal.
Right.
And then he
Right.
told me about MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, and they had scholarships available for BIPOC clinicians. And after that, I was like, oh, I'm in. I mean, ecstasy is amazing. I can only imagine using it with clients in therapy that it really facilitates that empathy and that deep connection.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. I cannot wait to dive more into it, but I do want to switch gears for a second.
Mm.
I want to hear, what degree did you choose, license and state that you first started out with, and just all of that, like getting set up, getting licensed, getting up and running just as a therapist for the first time, for folks who are, currently looking at programs, currently trying to figure out how to become a therapist. What did the nuts and bolts of like actually going to grad school look like for you?
This wasn't the traditional pathway I had chosen. I originally had gone to graduate school with the intention of becoming the school counselor, which I do have a license as, but I'm not actively practicing. So the
Okay.
track I was traditional psychology. I went to University of Pennsylvania for graduate studies. I got my master's in professional counseling and another master's in counseling and mental health services. For undergrad, I just did a psychology degree at Loyola University in Maryland. And like I said, traditionally I thought I was going to go the school counseling route, and I ended up going the mental health counseling route. So it was a dual certification, I guess you can say.
Okay.
And then I really didn't see many opportunities as far as the educational space. I saw a lot of red tape ahead of me, so I was like, let me go to mental health space, and I ended up going to California, moving cross country from New York, and pursuing an LPCC, which is a licensed professional clinical counselor. That was the first license I secured, and then I just got reciprocity in other states through application. So that was Jersey next. Then I thought about Georgia and moving to Atlanta, so I got that one just in case. And then New York is my final stomping ground. So any day now, they're going to come through, and I'll get that New York license running.
Nice, nice. Okay. So I'm curious, which one was the easiest to get as far as reciprocity? And then which one's been the hardest to get? And any, I don't know, any random obstacles or surprises along the way?
Oh, I mean, California and New York are like in their ivory tower. They take forever with
Okay.
processes, and yeah, no shots fired. Don't slow down my application because of that. But definitely California and New York are the most difficult. I think New Jersey was the most seamless. Georgia, I had to take like an extra psychopharmacology course for like $900, so it was a little bit of a pain that I had to pay that premium. But yeah, definitely buckle your seatbelts if you're gonna try to get licensed in New York or California.
Whew. Okay. Good heads up there. Yeah. So, what populations do you enjoy working with? I know you talked about trauma, but trauma is a big umbrella, and that can
Mhm.
include a lot of different types of trauma. So, I want to hear about like just the types of trauma and the types of presenting concerns that your population works with.
So I work with a lot of complex trauma, people who have an
Okay.
extensive history of trauma, usually very rooted in early childhood, even.
Okay.
And I've worked with a lot of eating disorder treatment as well. So another modality I'm trained in is family-based therapy for anorexia, which is a way of restoring stability in the client's life that may be suffering from this very deadly psychiatric illness, where the family is kind of the outpatient team to help restore usually the adolescent female to a healthy weight where they can be able to eat independently. So I work with eating
Mm.
disorders, I work with trauma, I work with treatment resistant depression, addiction. Also work with couples as well. So I use Gottman method for
Okay.
couples as well. And I'm in the middle of designing a psychedelic-assisted protocol using for couples therapy right now.
Ooh, okay. So psychedelics for couples, that sounds like extra complexity. I mean, what does that actually look like in real life?
Well, I mean, being that I can only use ketamine, ideally I'd like to use MDMA when it does become legal for couples, but the ketamine itself has empathogen qualities to it, meaning it can really stimulate that sense of openness and understanding of how a person is feeling and really help bond that couple together. And it can also reduce that ego defense. So with couples, you see a lot of high conflict. In Gottman, they call it the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which are like the big warning signs that the marriage is not going to work out. So it really helps quiet down that critic maybe that might be willing to like attack or stonewall, they call it, like that emotional shutdown, and really help them bond a little bit without such hostility or animosity, and be able to work on the relationship and really dive deep and reveal those emotions that have been pent up and too difficult to really release.
Whoa, okay, so if I'm getting this correctly, like both members of the couple, both of them are having ketamine.
Hmm. Yeah, you can
Wow,
use
okay.
you can use low dose, or you can use a higher dose and then do the integration is the most important piece of psychedelic therapy. I do want to mention integration
Okay.
is usually, we'll say, like a 72-hour window max after the dosing session when they actually ingest the psychedelic. And the reason why that is, that's the most ideal or optimal time frame when the mind is most receptive to change. That's when the mind or the brain is most neuroplastic. So that's why we want to really get in there in that optimal window when we can really enact change.
Wow, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to that because wow, okay, there's a lot going on. Any couple's work is very complicated, but then you're adding this layer and it would definitely take a lot of training and a lot to do that successfully. That's really cool. Very complicated, but very cool. So, what types of outcomes have you seen for couples?
I mean, I'm still in the process of developing the protocol and everything, so I'm
Okay.
studying different modalities. More so, my big focus at the moment is my group protocol, which is called GRIP. GRIP stands for Group Recovery Integration Pathway, and is the world's first psychedelic-assisted EMDR group therapy.
Wow. Okay, so you're like the only one in the world.
As far as I know, I've seen no one else who has it on paper. I have it on paper, so, and I've trademarked my brand and everything. So yeah, Grip is my signature group therapy model. You can only find it at Cyberspace. It's an exclusive.
Ooh, okay. So I want to hear more about your personal story. Like, what has inspired you to start cyberspace and grip and these just like untraditional ways of helping people heal? I know you talked about treatment resistant depression and PTSD. I want to hear just like your heart behind all of this.
Like the true inspiration of what really put this to light, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As long as you want to take to tell the story and as complex as the story may be, we're here for it.
I don't even know where to begin. So one thing I'll say that really intrigued me about this field was accessibility, and that's how Grip kind of ties into this.
Okay.
So one big challenge I saw about the psychedelic field is that, yeah, it's very transformative, very powerful medicine, but it's very costly. So psychedelic assisted therapy can cost anywhere from $300 to $600 an hour, and that's not covered
Mm,
by insurance.
that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I couldn't afford it, so I mean, it adds up real quick. That's someone's life savings potentially. If you add up the course of treatment, it can be tens of thousands of dollars easily, especially for these other medicines like MDMA or psilocybin. Those journeys can easily be 4 to 8 hours. So who can pay for 8 hours of therapy not covered by insurance?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I mean, it sounds like your clients have got some real big presenting concerns. I mean, there's got to be a lot of pain there to be able to make that financial sacrifice.
Yeah, big time. So when I got to this field, I saw a lot of people like, oh yeah, this is great. And then I saw other companies, in my opinion, it was a big money grab for them. Or I see a lot of VCs, these venture capitalists that are like, okay, yeah, big money, like we want to invest in this because it's $1 billion industry. And I was like, well, the people who need it the most are people of color, are elderly, are trauma survivors, are veterans, law enforcement, etc. These are the people who need the treatment the most. How do we make it accessible to them? So that's what really inspired me to develop GRIP. So the beauty of GRIP is that I can heal 12 clients or more at once, and I can subsidize the cost substantially. So being with that, I mentioned to you that this therapy can cost up to $600 an hour. How much do you think I would charge for something like this for people who are of financial need.
Well, I mean, you said the range was 300 to 600. You got to cover your own cost. It's your livelihood. I would guess closer to 350, 400.
Is that your final answer?
375, final answer.
375 for a group therapy per hour?
Per person?
Per hour, per hour.
Per hour.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to be way off. Um, how much you would charge total for everybody?
No, just per person. I
Per
mean, per
person?
hour for the lowest tier, for the people who are financial needs. So we'll say the people who are on disability, who are on unemployment.
See, I'm sticking to 350 because I
All
say
right,
you still got to cover your own costs.
all right, you're locking it in.
I'm locking it in, 350 a person.
$60 an hour.
$60.
$60 an hour.
That is insanely accessible. Wow. Huh. So, how do you keep costs so low? If you don't mind me asking, I know this is getting really into the nitty-gritty.
So the way that it works is the scalability of my model. So since I'm charging $60 an hour, the way that a model works is that I just scale it out. So 60 times 12 is 720. So combine that together, that would be an hourly rate of $720 an hour for the clinician, technically, right? That, that's
Yeah.
substantially more that someone would make in an individual session. Even someone who's private pay, say they're charging $200 an hour, they would have to see about four individuals just to match that. And they're only healing one person, they're only healing four people, where I could heal 12 at once. And then another way that it works also is my dynasty system. So the dynasty system is my healthcare affordability system. It's actually the world's first self-sustaining healthcare affordability system. So how my system works is that the people who can pay the premium tier, so the people that are paying like the $200 to $300 an hour, rather than pocketing that money and giving it all to the corporation or giving bonuses like Oprah, like you get a bonus, you get a bonus. Rather than doing that, I trickle that revenue down to the people who are marginalized such that they can access it at a lower tier. So rather than, like I said, taking that $200, I'll take a fragment of that $200 to make it affordable for $60 an hour for the people who are, like I said, marginalized.
Wow, that's insane. 'Cause I'm just thinking through it as a clinician in private practice. Like, you got liability insurance, you got marketing costs, you got all of this stuff, and you're still able to make it like so affordable for the people that need it the most. So I can't help but wonder more about your personal story, and what's it like as a Black clinician serving this community that you're so passionate about. I just,
Hmm.
yeah, I know that's not a formed question, but I mean, it's so clear that like your heart and just your intentions behind this mission are just to help this community. So I can't help but wonder more about like your personal story of what led you to do this.
Well, I mean, my original inspiration was Carl Rogers. So I worked at that camp sponsored by Mariah Carey, where I got to actually meet her and
Mhm.
work with the adolescents. I saw a fellow counselor. His name was Carl, ironically. Shout out to
Yeah.
Carl.
Yeah.
And Carl, he did a lot of reflective listening. So I would see him talk to the campers. These were like teenagers, like 13 to 15, and they would just pour their heart out to him and open up to him. And
Mm.
it just blew my mind. I was like, "Do you know that kid?" He's like, "No, I just met him." And I was like, "How do you get them to open up so quickly? You're a complete stranger." He's like, "All I do is something called mirroring. I just act like a mirror for their emotions and their thoughts, and I just reflect back everything that they're going through." And it just blew my mind how simplistic but how profound it was. And I just saw just the level of potential that these kids had. And then as a black clinician, I saw how important this work is when I went through my own journey through therapy. So I was working with he was elderly, white Christian male therapist, and was doing EMDR with him actually, and it brought up a lot of emotion for me, and it was raw. And I had mentioned to him that as a kid growing up in Long Island, I went to a predominantly white school, and I had won the geography beat for my elementary school. So that was a milestone moment for the school's history, being the first black student to win this competition, and it felt like my defining moment. It felt like I was just not a champion of the geography beat, but I was a champion for my people. And when I disclosed this to the therapist, his response was, yeah, you don't really see blacks excelling outside of sports and entertainment. And that made me just feel completely invalidated, and it really questioned my sense of self-worth. I'm like, how are other people of color approaching therapy, and how would they feel hearing something like that, being in a vulnerable space, to the point that only 4% of therapists are black, and then when you consider black male therapists is even less. So that really kind of opened my eyes, was like, we need more clinicians of color. So hence why I created Cyberspace, which is a BIPOC affirming and LGBTQ plus affirming healing space where really science meets soul, and we really want to help people not just trip but transform and really reach their full potential.
I love that tagline. Wow. And you're really tapping into something really important here. I'm a white lady, I'm 27, and I feel like a lot of therapists look just like me. And that can be really hard to folks who have experiences that are like very tied to their intersectional identity, and they're looking for somebody who just gets it.
Hmm.
At the same time, communities of color have different ideas about mental health, and there's just different types of stigma in different communities. So, what have you noticed in those communities, and how are you overcoming those barriers to just like seeking treatment and
Hmm.
those ideas that people have about themselves when they come to the conclusion of, I need help for my mental health? There might be some negative ideas about themselves that come along with that. And so, how do
Hmm.
you address that in your practice?
Essentially, how am I destigmatizing the approach to therapy, or the idea of going to therapy?
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, for one, through GRIP, I'll tell you a little bit about how that works in a moment. So with GRIP, I partnered with AME Church. So AME stands for African Methodist Episcopal Church. It's actually the oldest black church in the nation, I think.
Oh, wow.
And particularly, I feel like the church is a safe haven for black people, that it's a place where people come in communion and fellowship, where they're more accepting of you. And using that space as far as integrating mental health and spirituality together. So it's kind of the intersection of faith and healing. Of using that space to conduct therapy sessions is my goal right now with this partnership that I have with Israel Memorial in Newark, New Jersey. With my GRIP protocol, how it kind of works is it's mostly nonverbal. And rather than verbalizing your past traumas or those deeply rooted issues, clients, they use symbols like drawings, images, words written down on paper, and they use tapping to reprocess those past memories without it overly activating them. And the ketamine is there as the added catalyst to really facilitate the reprocessing. So, what I like about this particular approach to therapy is that it really not only quiets the mind down and the critic, but also that shame of really disclosing what you're dealing with. So, for instance, I had a client who I was doing individual EMDR therapy with. Sadly, my client was an EMT, and he had lost a patient on the table, a 2-year-old patient. He couldn't revive him. And he held so much guilt about it and shame about it that he couldn't get past it. He was suffering from treatment resistant depression, out of work for 5 years, multiple trials of medication. And through the EMDR work, he told me that he pictured the child being picked up by Jesus and being like carried to heaven with all these kids that have been lost souls. And he told me that he would like add a support between our sessions. So like, let me try out group therapy. So he went to Kaiser, went to one of their groups, and he mentioned that he had this situation at work, and then he said someone got so triggered, they said, I can't take this. And they walked out the room, and he immediately shut down. And he's like, I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed. Like, I'll never go back to group therapy ever again. Like, it's just too much. Like, I'm just too embarrassed. And GRIP eliminates that sense of self-disclosure. It's not required at all. It's actually discouraged. More so, the self-disclosure is encouraged when we're doing resourcing, when we're establishing coping skills, but actually working on those traumatic memories, it's discouraged to even talk about what you're going on. It's a private experience where you're just tapping back and forth like you're in your own little DJ booth you could think of, like just hitting turntables.
Wow, that's amazing. Because I think about with trauma, so many people feel like whatever happened defines them.
Mhm.
And I think about just the principles behind EMDR. It's this idea that you have this negative mantra about, okay, I am not safe, I am incompetent, I am whatever. And that really flips the script. The stuff that they're sharing and self disclosing is the resourcing part. And so that's how they're known and that's how they self disclose within the group. I mean, that really turns those trauma messages on their head and really flips the script.
Yeah, that's really the intention. So it's a collective healing. So I want you to think of this on a deeper level because this is beyond the surface. Because as people are tapping on, like, usually it's at a table, they're tapping on a table back and forth as they're keeping this image in mind. And the purpose of that tapping is it reconsolidates the memory to the point where it's not so triggering and it's not so overwhelming. Kind of like your REM sleep is kind of like simulating that as far as when we dream at night, our eyes rapidly move under our eyelids, and that helps consolidate stuff that we learned during the day. Tapping works through the same mechanism. And not only is it kind of replicating that mechanism, the tapping is also raising consciousness. What I mean by that is tapping creates sound. So when you bang like this, it creates a vibration. So when people are tapping in collective, it's a collective vibration of energy being raised up at once. Hence, within that circle of healing, we're raising trauma healing through a collective consciousness, through tapping, through raising vibration. Vibration is a form of energy.
Okay. Ooh. So I want to dig deeper into EMDR. I feel like EMDR is one of those that I always hear people talk about, okay, the risks of, ooh, what can go wrong if the reprocessing goes sideways or something like that. And I can't
Hmm.
help but wonder if there's more to manage in a group setting of, more things that could potentially go wrong. I
Hmm.
have heard that, you're not supposed to consume marijuana 5 hours before or 5 hours after, that can mess with the reprocessing. But are there other, like, big risks to the treatment?
Well, there are some contraindications that we would screen for, and that would be
Okay.
maybe very severe dissociation. So people with DID or dissociative identity disorder, that's
Hmm.
the newer term for split personality disorder, to keep it simple. So we
Yeah.
would screen for stuff like that, maybe even history of extreme psychosis, like people who have heavy history of like hallucinations, schizophrenia, and stuff like that. We would
Okay.
screen for that, and it's the same type of conditions we kind of screen for with ketamine treatment or psychedelic therapy treatment in the same manner. I mean, in with psychedelics, the same thing. We don't want to exacerbate those underlying issues, like whether it be like a strong personality disorder that can cause a lot of fragmentation of the ego. We want to avoid that, but it's a careful screening process. And then we're also seeing constantly as a clinician their window of tolerance. So the window of tolerance is the range of affect or emotion that they can deal with. So we don't want a client to be up here when they're overly stimulated and they're hypervigilant and they're overwhelmed to the point where it's too much. Or we don't want them also hypovigilant where they're some severely numb and dissociated and disconnected from their memories. So we really want them to be able to hold a dual awareness where they're able to work on the memory at hand while also being able to stay engaged, like keep it, that memory in mind while working through it.
Ooh, okay. Okay. So one of the things we haven't talked about very much, or at least not talked about by name, is your dynasty system. Excuse
Mm,
me.
mm, mm.
Tripping over my words. Can you tell me more about the dynasty system?
So the dynasty system is a self-sustaining healthcare affordability system where
Okay.
it's fragmented into three different tiers. So at the bottom
Okay.
tier, you have the C tier. The C tier are the people who are of most need, whether just not just be financially, but through their psychiatric presentations. So people who are treatment resistant, people who are of a low income, like I said, are some of our most vulnerable populations, whether that be veterans, communities of color, etc. And above that tier is a sustainability tier. This is more so like your working class individuals that can afford like the average going rate. And I called that the harvest tier. So the harvest tier nourishes the underlying seed tier, and a fragment of that revenue from that sustainability tier nourishes the seed tier such that people have more access and accessibility. And then above that tier is something called the kingdom tier. The kingdom tier are the affluent, the people who are most privileged, that have that abundance of financial resources, and they provide the highest contribution of their efforts towards their treatment. So part of that income trickles down to not just the harvest tier, but also the seed tier as well. So it's really sacred reciprocity at hand, where when one person heals, another person gains access to healing, and is just an all-encompassing ecosystem where everybody gets healed. You could think of it like I think of it as in spiritual terms, and I think you have a spiritual background as well. And I mean that's a whole other story. But in my faith, we have something called like the altar call, where you go up to like the altar and you want to dedicate your life to God and everything. And a person may be too scared to do that on their own, so you may bring that person up with you so they can receive their blessing. And the dynasty system's kind of the same way. You can like grab someone by the hand, quote unquote, grip them by their hand, and walk them to treatment with you so they can get healed if they can't afford it. It's kind of the same concept. Or if you want to make it more secular, it's like ladies' night. Like you get them for free, and your homegirl gets them for free, and then so on and so forth. And then before you know it, you got a whole table where everybody got them for free.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's just so clear with every program that sustainability and equity really and like that social justice is really at the heart of this organization.
Yeah, that's really what the essence of it is. I mean, no one should be left behind. Everybody should have access to it. Is really what it's all about. I mean, I feel like the healthcare system. I'm gonna just shoot shots at everybody. Is that it's very transactional. So how it kind of
Mm,
works is that you go see your doctor, you see your dentist, whoever, even your therapist. You hand them, you pay the money, and that's it. Like you go on with your day, and this way when someone gets healed, they're saying like, okay, not only am I contributing to my own healing, but I know my dollar is going towards someone else who is unfortunate, who's disadvantaged, that can get healing too. And
wow.
as a practitioner, you're self-sacrificing some of your revenue such that the healing is going back to the system. But I mean, I believe in overflow. When you give your first to God, your first fruits to God, then He's going to give it back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's just so much that's changing the community. It's not just about changing one person, it's about just rewriting the story of what mental health care can look like and what equity can look like. And I just think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anyone else doing this. I mean, we can look at Reaganomics, but this is not Reaganomics. This is more so restorative economics, I would
Hmm.
call it. So again, like I don't see anyone else doing this, but my goal is to make this systemic healing. So another way the overflow works is that's why I forgot the one thing I forgot to mention. The portion of the revenue that trickles down to the disadvantage is called the overflow blessing. So that overflow blessing doesn't only create equity for the clients to seek treatment, it also creates community healing as well. What I mean by that is I partner with an organization called Thank You Life. So Thank You Life is a nonprofit that creates accessible psychedelic treatment. So people who can't afford ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, they'll cover 95% of the treatment, up to 95%. So my goal is, as a practitioner, is the money that I'm raising through my GRIP program and TRIP, which is the individual version of it, is that I'm going to give a fraction of that revenue back to Thank You Life as a charitable donation to help create more access for the community, or any nonprofit partner that wants to team up with Cyberspace. I'd like to give a charitable donation to that partnering organization so that we can have community restoration and build community wealth.
Wow. Okay, cool. So another thing that you touched on, but we haven't really dived deep into, is that you're bringing therapy into community spaces like churches. You're meeting people where they're already looking for that healing, rather than just keeping it in clinics. So I'm curious, like, why is it so important to do that?
I feel like it, in a sense, kind of destigmatizes the therapeutic approach, because
Ooh, okay.
going to like a doctor's office, or even going to a therapy office, can be very intimidating. It can be very sterile. Like, the thing about you go to the doctor's office, they put you in this cold room on this stale paper, and you're sitting there just waiting for the doc to come in. So this is more like a communal type of healing, where you're like, okay, I'm here with my brothers and sisters. I'm here with my loved ones, my friends and my family, in a space that I'm used to, that's familiar with to me. So that's really the aspect of it that I see as like bringing it straight to your doorstep. I mean, we got Uber Eats, we got DoorDash, we got Tinder, straight to your door. And in the same mechanism, why not bring the therapy type of aspect to it, where like we're healing you in a familiar space that is easily accessible, that provides rapid transformation, rapid delivery. The GRIP program is 8 weeks, so within 8 weeks you can be healed, you can reach your full potential and be transformed from PTSD, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, grief, and loss, addiction, eating disorders.
Mm, that's a lot of freedom in just 8 weeks.
I would say it's liberation, it's
Yeah,
transformation.
yeah. Wow. Okay, so I'm curious, this is a real personal one. What has been your personal experience with psychedelics, if you're okay sharing?
So yeah, I'll share both instances. So for one, ketamine is very powerful and potent, but it has a short half life, and it doesn't compare to traditional psychedelics. But what really opened my mind to psychedelics is psilocybin. So psilocybin is legal in 3 states: Colorado, New Mexico, and Oregon, right? And we'll just say I was in Denver, and I got to experience a low dose psilocybin, and at the time I was exploring holistic health. So like healthier eating, healthier lifestyle, health and wellness has been always an important part of my life. And I was kind of blown away by psilocybin as far as how mind expanding it was, as
Okay.
far as new ways of thinking. So for that journey, I fasted for like 12 hours just to be pure as possible. And I went out to nature. And my connection to nature was so powerful and impactful. Like I could literally see like the grass and the flowers blooming in like real time. And it was
Wow.
just incredible. You could see energy just moving, like the consciousness of the universe just moving. It was everything was high definition and so vibrant, and there was such a deep inner peace. And after I came through that journey, I was starving, of course. I had been fasting for like 18 hours by that point. And I looked at my fridge, and like the last thing I wanted was to eat meat or any type of animal. And I had like a salad in there with like a Tex-Mex. And when I ate that salad, the raw greens and veggies felt like the most nourishing thing. And it felt like true life. I'm like, this is where it's at. This is like true nourishment. And after that journey, I ended up becoming a vegan like within the next year or so. And now I'm still a full blown vegan 5 years later. And when I tried ketamine for the first time, which is legal in all 50 states, at first I was kind of underwhelmed. Honestly, I was like, well, I'm gonna start seeing some cool stuff, the walls breathing and all that. I'm like, when's the action gonna start? When the party gonna start? And I was like, I was really impressed. And then I took, usually with ketamine, it's a very introspective experience. So you're going inward. And I was like, all right, I'm not seeing stuff. I'm not getting cool visuals like I thought I would or anything. But I noticed how light I felt in my body. It was like, I don't even feel my body right now. It felt like my body was like floating on a magic carpet. And I was laying on my back. So like, think of like Aladdin status. Like you're just gliding through the universe. It felt like I was just time traveling. I was like, that's kind of cool. And then I took off my eye shades, and that's when I knew it was the real deal. Everything felt so vivid. It felt like a dream. So I don't know if you saw like 90s sitcoms when they used to be daydreaming and it gets all like sparkly and wavy. That's kind of
Yeah.
what it looked like on a ketamine journey. Like everything was like all sparkly and wavy. Like it felt like I was in a dream, like Vincent Van Gogh, Starry Night kind of dream. Like everything all swirled around. I was like, wow, this is kind of psychedelic. And that's when I was like blown away. And sadly, it only lasted for maybe a little bit over an hour. So I did it. I took the lozenge, and I didn't feel much. And then I took the IM, and that's when it kind of took me to the moon. And then I heard all these people in the room like laughing and everything because I did it at an experiential training actually, and everybody was like laughing in the room, and some people were crying and all that. And I was like, "What is going on? All this action!" And then they hit me with like one of those darts, like tranquilizers, like, "Oh, you need some more ketamine," and knocked me back out. And but after that experience, I was like, "Okay, I really see the powerful nature in ketamine. It may not be as potent as like a psilocybin or an LSD." As far as like the visual or any of those type of distortions, but also I just noticed the clarity of mind. Like I could, like I said earlier, ketamine I described it as the most peaceful piece. Like it literally is a tranquilizer. A lot of people condemn it for a tranquilizer, and I mean I wouldn't say that's a misnomer because it really puts your mind in a state of tranquility, like pure tranquility, at ease when you're so calm in your body and so relaxed. And even one of my fellow colleagues who was in the training with me, he said he had like chronic leg pain, and he said for that moment, for like that past hour or two, like I felt nothing in my body. It's the first time I felt relief in my life for decades from this chronic pain that I've been dealing with. So I really like ketamine that is so rapid and effective that people can experience the transformation, the healing within a matter of hours, sometimes minutes. So whereas medications or traditional talk therapy can take weeks, months, sometimes years to really see a difference, ketamine you can see rapid change sometimes within a matter of hours.
Wow, that is a wild experience. That's really cool to hear about. I mean, yeah, that does kind of line up with that traditional, like how media portrays psychedelics, that yeah, tranquil. Tranquil is the best way to say it. So what legacy do you want to leave as a pioneer in psychedelic therapy?
That's such a deep question. I
Right?
mean, I'm thinking about that every day. I lose sleep over this every night already,
Yeah.
but so I don't even know where to start. More so, it's really to heal generational trauma is my big goal. So
Mm,
to really heal that deeply wounded trauma that my ancestors have suffered from. I mean, sadly, it's embedded in our DNA. Like, I've worked with clients on ketamine journeys, and it's just incredible of their access to ancient wisdom. So I've had clients who've said they've been felt protected and supported by their ancestors during the journey, or they felt like held and secured by their spirit guides. So my goal really is to have a history of generational healing that we can stop PTSD or even bigger, the opioid crisis. Talk about the elephant in the room. That's the most devastating mental health crisis we have right now. So if we can eliminate that through psychedelic healing, like God willing, ibogaine gets legalized soon, which is very potent for healing opioid addiction. That's my grand goal. And then through the dynasty system, my goal is to restore communities. So restore our communities of color rather than gentrifying them. Let's kind of restore them, keep the people within those communities, restore our native lands with the dynasty system, being able to contribute back to the world. And then kind of what you touched on earlier was intersect healing in different contexts. Therapy does not just have to be in a therapy room. It can be in the church. It can be in hospice. It can be at the police station. It goes on and on and on. And that's my grand goal, is to integrate my GRIP program through every little aspect, every little niche of society, that everybody can have access to non-stigmatizing, transformative healing.
Wow. This really disrupts the traditional therapy model. And I know that's a big part of your brand is just having a new innovative way. So I'm curious, why do you believe that therapy needs to be disrupted right now?
Why does it need to be disrupted right now? Well, why not?
Or
I
just in
mean,
general?
well,
Yeah.
think about it. Like, therapy has existed for ages and ages, and traditional talk therapy is effective. Let me not disclaim that at all. However, there's some things with traditional talk therapy that may not be accessible through ordinary states of consciousness. Psychedelics help access that non-ordinary states of consciousness, and it does it at a more rapid rate than traditional talk therapy ever could. And even, like I mentioned earlier with the dentist analogy, verbalizing your deepest, darkest secrets, really opening up that closet full of skeletons, can be very activating and very vulnerable. So why do it the hard way when we can do it the easy way? Like this, I prefer the easy way, or easier way, I should say. Hence why there is a need for disruption. I mean, traditional talk therapy doesn't work for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I think 3 out of 5 people don't even respond to traditional talk therapy. Those are the treatment resistant. So
Wow.
that is pretty telling that 60% of people may not even respond to traditional talk therapy when they have severe depression, severe PTSD.
Wow, yeah, that's sad to hear because I mean in that statistic I hear a lot of people who had hope that things were going to get better and put a lot of trust in our system and in therapists in our profession, and that didn't quite work out. That's really sad to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. I mean, I think psychedelics transforms the traditional therapeutic approach. I mean, not just that openness as well, but just the emotionality of it. Like therapy can be very raw, very vulnerable, very distressing emotions. Psychedelics helps not ease those emotions, and it can really induce a state of euphoria, a state of calmness, a state of
Wow.
just receptiveness.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot more hope in like that, that method, that modality, whatever. I hear a lot more just hope for the future in that model, and I love that. So, I'm curious, what's something about becoming a therapist that you wish people talked about more honestly?
Well, for one, the lack of representation. I feel like that is something that's kind of swept under the rug. For one, in addition to that, I mean, don't go into therapy if your goal is to make money. If that is your primary objective,
Ooh,
then
okay.
this is not for you. If you want to transform lives, great. But if your sole initiative, your primary motivation is to make revenue, make income, therapy is not the outlet. There's easier ways to do it. Like, do you really want to do 3,000 hours of practicum or internship? Do you want to and be paid minimum wage or not make anything at all and be in school for 20 plus years for that sacrifice? So again, like therapy is a long haul. I mean, it's not as intensive as medical school, but at the same time, to be a master's level clinician, you got to put in the work, the time, the investment, the energy, and you may not see that return on investment if you're going into becoming a therapist. So I mean, that's kind of the raw truth about it. I feel like those are like the ones that really jump off the page to me right now: the lack of representation and just the focus on making money over helping lives.
Mm, yeah, that's a big one. That's a philosophical one.
Mhm.
So Coley, I want to hear what's next for you in your work.
My next work is, I'm glad you really asked it actually, because I have some exciting news. So the next step is I am partnering with Columbia University School of Social Work. They have a psychedelic therapy training program, which is the world's first in degree psychedelic education program in the entire world. And and I'm in the process of running my GRIP program in conjunction with Columbia. Hopefully, we can launch an IRB, which is an Institutional Review Board study, where we can get publicized in literary journals or scientific journals, I should say. So that's on the table right now, and then Cyberspace will be an official practicum site for Columbia University's School of Social Work graduate students. So I will be able to train the next generation of clinicians in psychedelic-assisted therapy. And my way of paying it forward is I like to offer a stipend to these students because I know as a grad student I didn't make anything for all the times I had to show up dealing with these difficult populations. And I know trauma populations are not easy to deal with. So that's really what's on the agenda is partnering with Columbia, hopefully getting published in a scientific journal. That's all on the horizon, as well as opening a new location. Right now, I'm located in Maplewood, New Jersey, as one of my centers, but also I'm looking to expand to possibly Long Island, New York, or New York City for my next location. So it's in proximity to the university.
Wow, okay. So, you're sounds like you're paying it forward, like you're helping that next generation of therapists really know more about this subject and really get into it. And so, I'm curious, do you have any recommendations for resources, whether it's books, podcasts, trainings, anything like that, for folks that want to dive into this whole world of psychedelic mental health treatment? What would you recommend that they check out?
Oh, there's such a plethora of resources, but I would start where my journey began with psychedelics. So that's really what piqued my interest. It wasn't experiencing the medicine, it was having the knowledge and awareness of it. So, a must see documentary is The Union. The Union breaks down the cannabis industry of how cannabis has been demonized, but it's really a ubiquitous resource that has so many resources and uses. So start with The Union, and then there's How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. He has a Netflix series on, as well as a book. That's another like must read. One of my colleagues, he mentioned, actually a Columbia student, I should say, he mentioned this book called Black Renaissance. I have to get the name. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but Black Renaissance is another book that opens the veil lifts up the veil for psychedelics as well. In addition to that, there's a lot of institutions out there. There's MAPS, which is, I think they're changing to Lycos Therapeutics now. And then there's different training institutes, whether they be CREA, which is for ketamine, Prati, Polaris. There's so many different training institutes out there. Cyberspace is going to be next. So, yep, put that on the map too. We're going to have the Cyberspace Academy, where I'm going to be training clinicians in psychedelic-assisted therapies and EMDR. That's the vision as well. So that's really what's on the table. I think those are the ones that really come to mind. If I ever come to any other ones, I will definitely send them over to you and you can share it to the world.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, sounds good. So, final question of the day. Where can listeners connect with you if they want to learn more about your work or follow you and follow your work?
Well, they can check me out at cyberspacetherapy.com. That's PSY, as you see in the name, rather than CY. And we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube as well. I mean, we're at cyberspace_therapy. And join our mailing list. That's how you can stay abreast of some of our new offerings and any openings of our locations. We'll be glad to have you. I do offer a free 20-minute consultation, even though we're a private pay organization. We do have the Dynasty system to be able to give it to you at an affordable rate if you qualify.
Wow, okay. So lots of resources out there, and to everybody listening, I will link everything in the description. Coley, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Morgan. honestly a pleasure. I hope I get invited again. I hope I didn't ruffle any feathers today, but I shoot me an email if you got a problem with it.
Yeah, no, no problems at all. I know it's very untraditional and very just like outside the box, outside of what we're told in grad school that we can do, and how we can practice. So, I'm so thankful for you to be willing to come on and share all these unconventional things. And to my listeners, thank you so much for watching through the end. Don't forget to subscribe to Becoming a Therapist if you're finding my content helpful. And once again, I will have all of Coley's links and everything in the description for you to check out. As always, I wish you the best of luck on your journey towards becoming a therapist.